Am I the a-hole for refusing to discuss our kid's last name with my ex? Ex and I broke up 5 years ago. We're civil enough for our kids' sake. But there is a lot of bad blood there that can't be undone easily. And this kind of discussion makes it harder. So ex got married a year ago and is 7 months pregnant with another child. She sent me an email not too long ago saying her and her husband have discussed adding their last name to our kid's last name. She said the kids had already been informed of their plans and were on board. But when my kids brought it up to me 2 days before X said anything, the kids mentioned it and said they didn't want their names changed. And my daughter was upset because she took it as it was happening regardless of how they feel. My son got the same impression. I replied to X that I did not consent and I would not discuss the issue further. It was short and simple, and that was all I planned to do. But then I got a slew of emails from her expressing that I was a prick, and we should discuss issues pertaining to our children, and that I am denying the kids of what they want, and she'll take me to court over this regardless. I told her that was fine. If she wanted to waste money in court, I would see her there. Her husband decides to call my office and talk crap to me over the phone about this issue. A few of my friends said I should have at least discussed this with her, instead of just saying no and that I won't talk about it. Am I the a-hole for this? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. If her husband responded by calling you at your work, then I'm not sure any discussion would have gone well anyway, except if it ended in them getting their way. They were justified in asking, but not in name-calling and calling you at work, which could have consequences for you. Not the a-hole. I think it was nice of Opie not to put his kids in it by saying they don't want it either. Opie can just as easily suggest they have the husband change his name and give the new kid the same last name as Opie. What? Then they can all have the same last name. Isn't that nice? Not the a-hole. Firstly, these are your kids too. Your input is required while they're minors. Secondly, it sounds like the kids weren't actually asked, but simply told this was happening. So she lied to you. Edited to add. If your ex or her partner are contacting you at work, it better be a child-related emergency. There's no other reason. The kids might have picked it up wrong. My ex was never great at communicating. But regardless, they have expressed strongly to me that they don't want this done. So that's all there is to it. Yep, that's point number 3. They don't want this. Firm not at a-hole. And while it's pessimistic, please document her attempt to force this name change and the response your children had. Info. Do I understand that correctly, that they want to add the new husband's last name to your children? That is so insane. I hope I understood that very wrong. Yes, this is what they want. So instead of Jones, it would be Jones-Smith or Smith-Jones. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to hyphenate my last name? My mom got married recently, and she and her husband to hyphenate their names and form one family name. Her husband's kids and my half-siblings are all on board with changing their names to the hyphenated version. I am not on board with this for me. I have expressed this at least 20 times since it first came up. I don't want my name changed. That will not stand up in court and consent. My mom is so upset, and she has tried talking me around, even tried offering me bribes to go along. Her husband asked me why I'm against it, and I have told him straight, I like my name as it is, and it's my tie to my dad, who died 2 years ago, and I don't want anyone taking anything or adding anything to it. My name has been my name for 15 years, and no, just because I'm a girl doesn't mean I'll change it when I get married, so that's not an argument to use with me. I also pointed out I could do the same when I'm older and get married and hyphenate. And I don't want 3 last names, and his name would be the one to go in that circumstance, not my dad's. Both are pretty pissed I won't work with them on this, and agreed to compromise a change. My mom has told me I'm being stubborn for the sake of being stubborn. And having a family name that brings us all together is nice, and I'm separating myself from that. Her husband told me I'm making him feel like there's something wrong with him/his name. I told him that was his problem, and I had made my feelings clear. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Your name is your name, and at 15 you are old enough to decide for yourself. What do they want to do? Force you to change it and then let you change it back when you're of age? Hell, when my brother adopted his wife's kids, the younger was I think 4 or 5 and the older was 9 or 10. Maybe even younger, and to be honest, I think they were. Anyway, they asked the older if he wanted to take my brother's last name. They compromised and he took the last name as his middle name. The younger wasn't old enough to know the difference. Anyway, names are so important, and Opie absolutely has the right to choose hers. Not today, Opie. They have fair reasons for asking, just as you have fair reasons for refusing. However, I have expressed this at least 20 times since it first came up. I don't want my name changed, and I will not stand up in court and consent. That is 18 or 19 times more than should have been necessary. Trying to force the issue on their daughter makes them clearly a-holes here. Not today, Hull. Not today, Hull. You're not marrying the bloke. She is. She can change her name. Any kids they have can have their new name. Unless he adopts you, you shouldn't be under any obligation to do so. And even if he does, you're 15. You should be able to make your own mind. It's just a name. Just because your mom adds an extra name doesn't mean your relationship changes. Under no circumstances is he adopting me either. I'm happy to fight against changing my name and being adopted if I am ever forced to. Next story. Am I the a-hole for embarrassing my stepdad to his friends after he called my dad a loser? My mom was a single mom until I, 16 male, was 8, and that's when she met my stepdad Luke. My dad wasn't around because my mom said he was an alcoholic and knew he wasn't gonna be a good dad. Never found out about me until I was 10, and it was a whole thing. But he'd already been sober for years. Now I'm 16, and we're close. He's not just a fun dad, but also strict, and he was always upfront about his problems because he doesn't want me falling into the same things. Luke wasn't happy when my dad came to my life, and you can tell because it gets serious. And then he ignores my dad when he comes to see me at stuff or my birthday parties. I don't get to spend a lot of time with my dad. Only weekends and when I'm on school break or holidays. So I ask him if we could have more time together. My mom doesn't want to because I belong at home. So they're taking this to court now for him to get joint custody. The other day, Luke's friends came over to the house and they are playing poker in the kitchen. I came downstairs to charge my phone when I heard his friends ask how it's going with the custody thing. He was just ranting about my dad being a bum, and then he said he doesn't know why he even want to go with that alcoholic loser. My dad was an alcoholic back then, but he literally been sober for like 11 years. He got his own business and make good money on top of all that, so it just made me mad how he was calling him. So I called out from the living room that my dad makes more than him, so I don't know why he thinks he can call him a loser when he's made his life better since he stopped drinking. I left my room mad, but I know it was quiet in the kitchen. My mom came to me after and she told me I didn't have a right to embarrass him like that. She knows Luke was out of line talking bad about my dad, but I need to understand it's hard for him knowing I want to spend more time at my dad's than here. So I don't know if I was the a-hole in this or not. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Your mom and stepdad are though. What they are doing is called parental alienation, essentially trying to coach you to turn against your other parent, instead of letting you have whatever relationship you want. You are old enough to voice your opinion at a court. If you want more time with your dad, let him know that you are willing to testify that you want more time with him. Yeah, I know. That's what I told my dad that I'll tell a judge or whoever. He didn't want to push for more time before, unless I said I wanted that too. Sounds like you'd be better off away from Luke anyway. Not the a-hole. Your dad was an alcoholic and got better. Luke is an a-hole and staying the same. Not the a-hole. He shouldn't have talked about it in the house, friends or not. They aren't concerned about your feelings. You should have made to feel anything negative about wanting your dad in your life. I find it very interesting that they have made it about them. That's irresponsible, selfish, and childish. If this threatened them so much, perhaps they should work on being people who you want to be around. You hear stories about why people go no contact as adults, and this sort of thing is exactly why. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for not letting my stepsister borrow my ring? My stepsister lost her mom growing up very young, so she doesn't really remember her mom that well. She didn't have anything to remember her by because she didn't have anything of sentimental value from her mother. My mom died when I was young as well, but I remember she had a ring she got from my grandmother and wanted to give that ring to me but passed away before she could do so. I wear that ring every day, and usually I'm very picky about people touching it unless it's my father and grandmother. My stepsister noticed the ring and has been eyeing it. She's asked for it quite often, and I always say no. My stepsister would always beg. It doesn't have any meaning to her, so I don't know why a grown woman is begging for another adult's ring. She asked last week, and as usual I said no. She blew up on me and said it wasn't fair that I always got what I want, and called me petty and selfish a-hole. She went to her father like she was a child, and now her father is mad at me. My father defended me and now they're arguing. My stepsister is saying it's because of me and I feel bad. Am I the a-hole for not letting my stepsister borrow my ring? Not the a-hole. Make sure you protect that ring, because if she's this obsessed with it, she may resort to stealing it. I came here to say the same thing. Not the a-hole. It's not hers. It has no connection with her, but it's very, very special to you. Perhaps that's why she wants it, which is even worse. If her father is enabling her, then he's an a-hole and a bully. She's not called Veruca Salt, is she? Not the a-hole, and I'm surprised you felt you needed to ask. Family dynamics really mess with your head. If they are super wonky, things that are obvious to outsiders are difficult for those living it. There's been many things in my life where people have been like, WTF, why do you think you're an a-hole? And it's like, well, my family made me feel like one, so I'd second-guess myself. Not the a-hole. It's your ring, not hers. And it was your mother's and has a special meaning to you. If she really wants a ring, she can buy one herself. She's not entitled to your ring. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for not stepping down from walking my daughter down the aisle? I was pretty young, 18, when I had this fling with an older woman. It lasted a few months, then we didn't see each other again. 3 years ago, I found out I had a 20-year-old daughter that I fathered with this woman. We only found out because she got matched with my brother on some DNA site he had an account on. And that's how the story trickled out. She never told me she got pregnant because she didn't want her husband to know about it. Apparently he did when my daughter was 7, and was gone for a few years, then got back together when she was a teen. But they had a strained relationship. It got even more strained when she found out the truth, and neither had told her. I've been seeing my daughter regularly ever since, and we've tried to build our own relationship as father/daughter. It's been an emotionally heavy but rewarding journey. My daughter has kept minimal contact with them both from what I know, and doesn't see either as often as she used to. She got engaged to her boyfriend of 5 years. It's meant to be a small backyard wedding, and my daughter has given me the honor of asking to walk her down the aisle. It was very overwhelming for me, and I said yes without hesitation. This has gotten back to her mother and husband, neither which are happy about it, but since my daughter doesn't speak to them as much, they've contacted me. Since he's the one who raised her and such, it's rather disrespectful of me to accept a role I've only been filling for a few years when all the hard work was already done. I wanted to say plenty in that moment, but bit my tongue as best I could. He's just hurt that she didn't bother to ask him to be the one to give her away, and understands they have their own history. And asking me, man to man, to do him this favor and bow out of doing this since he's been the one in her life the most, and he understands it wasn't my fault that I wasn't. But still, seeing it from his perspective, yeah, I'm sure it's painful. My daughter doesn't want to consider it, so that's why stepping down on my own would be the next best thing, and I'd be doing something pretty disrespectful and selfish. That's rich coming from her, I know. Just to have a clear conscience on this, am I the a-hole? It's not your choice, and it's not that other man's choice. It's her choice, and she asked you, not the a-hole. I was just thinking that they, the mother and stepdad, seem very keen on taking other people's choices away. To then have the audacity to complain that Opie didn't do the hard work when he had no clue his daughter even existed? They're a-holes. And in asking Opie to step down, they're trying to take his daughter's choice away again, just in a roundabout way. They're going the right way to end up disowned. Wouldn't that be ironic? Not the a-hole. If your daughter is low contact with her mother and her stepfather, there's a very good reason for it. If you did bow out, there's no guarantee that she'll put whatever issues they all have aside and ask him to walk her down the aisle. You will also be deprived of yet another father-daughter moment. You've already missed out on so much, through no fault of your own. Don't miss out on this moment. If you do, this one will be your fault, and you will regret it forever. Do not step down. It's your daughter's choice. But you should talk to your daughter about doing something to include the only father she has known for a long time. Yes, they messed up by not telling her or you, but people are flawed, and he did raise her at the end of the day. Not the a-hole. Barely. He bowed out for a few years. If she thought he was worthy, she would have chosen him. Plus, he barely talks to them. Update. My male 27 wife, female 26, lost her job after leaving early numerous times out of concern for her friends, female 26. Mental health after her miscarriage. But when I tried to talk to her, she made me out to be the enemy. Original post. My wife and I have been married for 3 years, and we don't have any kids at the moment. We want to have kids in the near future, but as of right now, my wife is really struggling, and I don't know what to do to help her. My wife Liz has a best friend Lauren who she's known since high school, but ever since 2 years ago, Lauren has been going through a lot. Lauren had a miscarriage a couple of years back, and Liz told me that it was one of the things that led her to eventually divorce with her husband. Lauren was depressed for some time, and Liz would come over after work to comfort her and get her out of the home. And she even said that Nick, Lauren's husband, had asked her to do so too since Lauren wasn't being receptive to him. Nick would pay for activities for them to do, such as movies or concerts, and I would pay for some as well. I didn't know Lauren especially well, but after inviting them over for dinner a few times, I felt like I began to know them more too. But when Lauren would tell my wife about how Nick would try to offer to do things with her too, Lauren would usually refuse them and his suggestions to splurge on herself, to do her hair and make herself feel nice every once in a while. Liz tried to tell her that while she'll be there for her, that she should also confide in her husband to do things with him too. But she said that Lauren just felt guilty among other things. And there were a handful of fights that they had too. Fights where Lauren would tell Liz that she erupted at Nick for suggesting activities to her that she didn't want to do. Fights that Liz honestly felt that Lauren was in the wrong about, because she was constantly resenting him. One of the fights happened when Nick brought her flowers and offered to take her out to dinner for her birthday, only for Lauren to snap at him because she wasn't in the mood. When Liz asked if he had already purchased the reservation before asking her, she said that he didn't and that he should have known she wasn't in the mood, and she refused to take the flowers too. The other fight they had was about a vacation week that Nick was planning to use, but when he asked if she wanted to go, she gave him an attitude about not wanting to. So when he said that he would use the PTO later in the year once she was feeling up to it, she got on him for not asking his friends instead. But when he said that he wanted to spend it with her, she just went off at him and told Liz about it too. Fast forward some time and Lauren and Nick are no longer together. Lauren's condition has worsened, and it's taken a toll on my wife, who has continued to spend time with her after work. I'm all for supporting her friend, but I believe that there's a point when you must also prioritize yourself. And in the beginning, my wife would be tired after going straight from work to Lauren's to comfort her, both during the miscarriage and after their divorce. But now, as Lauren has continued to struggle more than a year after the miscarriage, and refused Liz's suggestion to try therapy, once with her husband and even after the divorce, Lauren has begun to make concerning statements about feeling like she might end it, and other stuff like that. And we were recently having lunch with another couple we know where Lauren texted her something similar, and Liz couldn't enjoy herself. I totally understand that. And on that day, she expressed that she needed to leave to make sure that Lauren was alright. And this was towards the first few times that Lauren began saying that. However, while driving away, Liz called Lauren, who then said she didn't mean it. And Liz was somehow able to make her feel better on the phone to the point where it was unnecessary for her to come over anymore. So, while I was relieved, but not completely convinced that she was fine, I told Liz that maybe she should go over just to make sure. But Liz said it was fine, and I trusted her with that since she knows her better. However, I also told her that while Lauren is her friend, she can't let her weigh her down when she's enjoying herself. Like at lunch or other times we had plans and sacrificed them to be there for Lauren. And that if Lauren refuses to get help time and time again, there's only so much you can do, and you still have to live your life. And while she said that she agreed in the moment, it's gotten a lot worse the past few weeks at work, to the point where she lost her job, and I'll try to explain why. Ever since the day when Lauren said she might end it at lunch, my wife has stopped telling me about the specifics like she used to. And while I understand that she never had to include me in the complicated details between her and her friend, it started to affect her at work consistently, to the point where she's left work early to check on her over concerning messages that she no longer wants to show me. and I only found out about it because she was fired. She had a full-time job, but after she was fired after several warnings and nights where she'd come home and be distressed while not telling me why when I asked, she finally told me that she's been leaving early to visit Lauren. It finally showed me a bunch of similar messages to end it from the other day, and she's really been affected by Lauren's condition a lot. However, I told her that's not an excuse for the lack of communication, and I told her that over the past few weeks too, ever since she started to somewhat ghost me at home for apparently what I said after the lunch. She showed me messages that pretty much proved she was going over there, as well as many calls that happened in her car during work hours too. However, we have bills to pay, and while I figured that maybe she was just down and stressed from work when she went quiet, she began blaming me for Lauren's condition of late, and saying that I encouraged her to neglect Lauren when that's not the case. I told her I don't think Lauren is a healthy friend because she's always affecting her mood even when they're not together. Not to mention how she refused to seek therapy or better herself over a year since the miscarriage. However, she now sees me as the enemy because of those comments, and I don't know how to make her stop ignoring me of late again. I felt scared to tell her not to see Lauren anymore after we left the luncheon, because of the possibility of cutting off Lauren's only support, and having her maybe do something like she said and having that on my conscience. But I'm starting to second-guess myself after everything that's happened, and I just want to ask what I should do from here since she's not talking to me, and thinks I'm not supportive of Lauren's condition, and I really feel like I'm losing her. From not eating dinner with me to not talking to me for long stretches, she sees me as the enemy and I don't know what to do. Top advice before reading the update. You need to be brutally honest with your wife. She is not helping Lauren. She is enabling her, and the way she is going about enabling her is wrecking her own mental health, has wrecked her job, and is on its way to wrecking your marriage. That what Lauren is going through sucks hardcore, but your wife is not helping by allowing this to continue. Tell her that if she doesn't believe you, then she should speak to a therapist herself to find out what is an acceptable level of help versus what is enabling someone to not deal with her own problems. Tell her that the next time Lauren sends a text threatening self-harm, she should immediately call emergency services in Lauren's area. Tell them she's made a threat to hurt herself, and that she'd like them to do a welfare check on her. Then she needs to tell Lauren that she will help emotionally support her while she starts therapy, but that therapy is a must for your wife to continue supporting her. If your wife won't draw a line, you may need to draw the line yourself, before your wife lets Lauren drown all of you. I completely agree with you. And when I told her that she can't let Lauren's text suck the life out of her when she's enjoying something like the luncheon, and quickly ruin her mood by demanding to leave, I was afraid to be more adamant about staying in case something did happen with Lauren, which would make my wife resent me for a long time. I regret that now. And while I did kinda say what I meant the same day, I should have been more adamant about it, and I was wrong to say it lightly. I recently told her that Lauren was also wrong in some of the ways that she began to neglect her husband, who was trying to comfort her too, along with how Liz isn't a replacement for Lauren's husband. I didn't want to come off as controlling, and I was afraid of something happening after putting my foot down too lightly after the luncheon. But I agree with setting the boundaries for going forward starting from now that you mentioned if she'll be open to hearing them. And if not and she continues to make me the enemy, then I'll take it from there. I've been in your wife's position before where I somehow became the only support for a friend who was very mentally unwell. It was making me miserable, but I was too focused on keeping her safe to see it. My partner kept telling me it wasn't healthy and I kept ignoring him because she needed me. For me, the realization came when I was very ill and couldn't get out of bed, and somehow still ended up on the phone with her social worker trying to assess whether she needed an ambulance/mental health crisis team while she was nonverbal and communicating with me solely in cat emojis. I realized that I was putting myself at risk for a relationship I got nothing out of, because she never supported me when I was also struggling. She sent me a message the next day apologizing that I responded saying that I was unwell and had too much on my own plate to be the person she turned to for support right now. She immediately blocked me and everything, and we haven't spoken since. The point I'm trying to make is that in my experience, you telling your wife that this relationship is unhealthy and damaging her life is not going to get through to her, because it is so hard to get over the idea that you are the only thing standing between this person and death. It is so hard to let go of the belief, which is not true by the way, that if you set boundaries and they actually do it, even if you know the chances of that are tiny, you'll be responsible. Essentially, she's now putting you in the same position for her, as she is in with Lauren. She is going to drag you down with her unless you set your own boundaries for how much of this you will tolerate. Maybe therapy or divorce will be the thing that snaps her out of it. Maybe it won't. But you can't spend the rest of your life catering to Lauren when she refuses to help herself. I'll ask her about therapy again despite already trying once, only to be ignored. I offered going together or even alone for her, including encouraging her to suggest it to Lauren too. But after I said what I said about how Lauren has become too demanding, she's seen me as the enemy since and has been unwilling to talk to me in my own home. Not to mention showing no plan to look for new jobs or file for unemployment and expecting me to pay the bills after saying that I can't afford it while she recovers, which is just another bag of worms. I'll ask her again to see if she'll be willing to talk about therapy and where we go from here. But given her silent treatment, I'm not confident that she'll want to talk at all. And if she doesn't, I'm thinking that that might be her answer in being done with our relationship. And now for the update. A lot of people said that the proper word that describes her relation to Lauren is codependent, and I honestly agree. Some suggested that I leave for a few days to take a break and think about what I'm getting out of the relationship post Lauren's miscarriage that sparked a dramatic behavior change in my wife. However, the suggestion that I decided to follow was talking to her once more and telling her where I stand and seeing where we both stand on the matter. So that conversation is why I'm updating. I echoed what someone said about how Liz could be enabling Lauren from wanting to seek therapy when she knows that she can call her at any time. And I also told her that lying by leaving early was wrong too. I also told her that we needed to discuss her next job, but she said that she'll get it when she wants to because it's my fault that she had to sneak around in the first place. And she also disclosed something new. She said that she's an empath and that she and Lauren are pretty much the same person. So when I criticized Lauren, I was criticizing her. She also said that I am someone who doesn't prioritize mental health because I criticized Lauren, and that if she hadn't lied and sacrificed her job to be with her, Lauren might not be here, and it would be my fault. So she said that paying for the bills was the least I can do because I don't care about Lauren at all, completely forgetting how I cooked for them numerous times and bought them movie tickets among other things, and sometimes with my own money too. Before I could even say more once she got started, she said that she's been talking about me to Lauren a lot and that I'm no better than her ex-husband and that she wants out and there's no changing her mind. Honestly, when we were going to talk, I wasn't expecting her to lay into me like that. I didn't expect it to be roses, but I really didn't expect her to get at me like that. I've been depressed myself lately and trying to push through, but we are in the process of getting a divorce because that's what she wanted, and I've also taken some time off for myself too. I've just started therapy, but the divorce process hurts and still hurts honestly. But that's pretty much it. I'm back working, but it still hurts. I'm playing a lot more games than I usually do at home, and a few of my friends have been really comforting. But it hurts. I don't want to ask for any advice on moving on from such an ugly end to everything if anyone has any suggestions. But that's pretty much it. She was done before I could even get that far, and even push for counseling together like someone else suggested too. Hey, I remember your first post. I'm really sorry that things ended up going down this way. I was afraid this is where this was headed. She was in deep into the codependency and enabling, and they were clearly co-poisoning each other's heads about marriage and husbands. Know that there is nothing you could have done differently to prevent this outcome. Your wife has mental health issue. Codependency is a mental health issue, and it parallels addiction in many ways. Your wife's mental health issues led her to choose an emotionally unhealthy relationship where she felt needed, over a healthy one where she didn't. You cannot blame yourself for being healthy. That was not a fault. You are young and you will bounce back from this. Let yourself feel your grief and anger. Those are normal things to feel right now. Invest your friendships and hobbies. Do what you can to make time pass, even if that's video games. But try to make sure you're socializing and exercising too, so you don't fall into a trap where you neglect yourself or your life. I'm so sorry you went through this. Trying to push through it while also working on some other aspects right now too. Would love to find some new hobbies as well. She also began telling some of our mutual friends about me being against mental health as well, so it's been weird with some friends, and some who wanted less to do with me since. So I'm trying to start over and maybe find some new ones eventually, which seems easier said than done at the moment, but hopefully soon as I have few good ones right now. Obviously you aren't against mental health. You're against enabling behavior, being codependent to the point where you lose your job, and untrained people pretending they are therapists. You know there's always some bleeding of the friendships when a divorce happens, and people make unexpected choices. But make sure you get your story out there and counter the false narrative. Like make sure people know your wife was literally fired because she wouldn't stop enabling this friend, and wasn't capable of drawing healthy boundaries. Well, your ex-wife and her best friend are made for each other. If it's any comfort, those two are not going to lead happy lives. They were friends long before we started dating going back to high school, so perhaps there was no coming between them at all. She knew Lauren before she met me too. I've told a few friends on my side, and some have stayed with me. It's just insane how fast everything changed. Your marriage was lost when she uttered, before it was us, it was them. I'm so sorry for your man, but I strongly recommend therapy for yourself to help deal with all this. Also stand your ground on the house and everything. She threw away the marriage, not you. Recently started, like very recently. What hurts more now is just the loss of friends who she was able to convince to her side, or maybe told them a different version. I don't know. I lost one good friend or someone I thought to be a good friend, and maybe they'll come back. But it would have been cool to help me find stuff to do, although I have family and a few others who can help with that. But it hurts for now the friends part. I'm so sorry, but this may be the best outcome for you. Your wife was lost to you long before this. Now you can work on your own mental health. You can move forward without distrust and worry of an absent/toxic partner. It's just crazy how fast everything happened over the course of a little over a year.